Welcome back to Abel's Treasures. Today we have the opportunity to talk to Thommy. Thommy is a certified referral trainer and certified high performance coach. Now, he's also done reselling in his prior life on Amazon and other platforms. We have the opportunity to talk about entrepreneurship, also what he's done with reselling. I really enjoyed the conversation as we went on a roller coaster ride of energy, and I think you would appreciate it as well. Remember, at the end, I'm going to pull out 3 items that I took away from this conversation. I would love that you put the comments down below on what you pulled out of the conversation as well. Now, before we jump into it, just a reminder, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and again, share with your friends. I appreciate you guys. Let's jump right into it. Thank you for coming on my show. I really appreciate it. Now, like we were talking about off camera, I know little to nothing about you. But that's not a bad thing. I had the opportunity to be in a book club with you, and that's where I connected with you, and I really enjoyed that. So before we go any further, can you tell a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so I always like to start with words that describe, right? So I'm tenacious, always about going after it, nonstop, commit to mastery, go and get it kind of thing, right? Helpful, all about helping others. How can I help? Optimistic, mindset driven, right? Looking at the positive. Mentoring, also loving to help people and guide people whenever I can, whenever they want it, towards something. Magnetic, often described as, because I don't know, just a word that resonates, right? And young at heart. So I may look young, but I'm getting older, and try to keep the youthful spirit. And I really just, I love entrepreneurship. I always have. I think we need to raise up entrepreneurs, and I really believe that we all have the capability inside of us to go after and achieve whatever it is that we want. And so I'm all about unlocking human potential and along the way, hopefully helping people inspire others to unlock their potential, right, to go to the next level. And that's kind of been a underlying throughput in everything that I've done. So that's kind of my, why I'm doing, being an entrepreneur and what drives me every day, kind of thing. So it's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you mentioned raise entrepreneurs, and I bet you if I asked this question without any borders, we could spend about a couple of hours on that.
I think
could you pull out a couple of Can you pull out a couple of things what you mean by raising entrepreneurs?
Well, I think the simple answer is we don't teach it. Right? We don't teach it in schools. There's no do you want to be a business owner? Take this class. In most schools, right? It certainly isn't part of the ACTs or SATs to test your entrepreneurial wit or wisdom. And so I think it's we've got to make sure that kids know that there's an alternative, that they don't have to do the go to school, get a job, work for a corporation, and retire if they don't want to choose that route. And so I think it's, raising entrepreneurs is about, number one, showing people that there's an alternative way. And it didn't used to be alternative, right? It used to be the way that's what we had, right? People were a farmer, they were a locksmith, they were, they had those businesses, right? And that was much more common. Right. And stuff. So it's number one, it's making sure kids know. And I think shows like Shark Tank and whatnot, being on over a decade now, literally kids who grew up with Shark Tank are now starting their own businesses, which is awesome. And then on the flip side, you also have the midlife crisis people who I honestly believe that, and I say that with love and not necessarily in a negative way, but it's a calling for growth. And I think that COVID actually has created a shift in a lot of people. They weren't happy. They were trapped in where they were, and they've decided, many of them, to do something independent, no matter what that is. It could be they're going to start selling, crafts, art. It could be network marketing. It could be real estate. We've certainly seen plenty of people entering real estate or insurance or financial planning. There's so many independent entrepreneurial style avenues out there. And this was kind of like the opportunity for people to take that. And I think they've done that along the way. And so we not only do we need to be giving support to the entrepreneurs, I'm sorry, to the kids who want to be entrepreneurs, we also need to make sure that those people who are making that shift become successful and stay there so they don't have to go back to doing something that they don't want to really do, right, out of necessity for the money, but can really continue to stay in and follow the path and go wherever they want to go in life.
That's a great answer. You mentioned, again, before camera, your background, the only thing that you haven't done is brick and mortar
that's pretty
business. True. Can you give some examples of some of the businesses that you've started?
Yeah.
Some of the side hustles, however you want to call it.
Definitely started. Well, you can go all the way back to Beanie Babies on eBay and in the late 90s, right? I'm gonna really roll it back, man. I mean, all the way back to selling McDonald's toys out of a red wagon in the trailer park when I was 6 years old. So that's if you want to go all the way back, but fast forward a little bit. Let's see. The first major one really being network marketing. Right. So I still am a Legal Shield associate. I did kind of 2 goes at that. So I've done the network marketing model. Love the industry for what it provides for people. It gives the path of least resistance to entrepreneurship, I think, and I like that. I have done Forex trading, which now the crypto and Bitcoin, everyone knows about that stuff. But I was trading currencies on the Forex market. Studied that for a couple of years, really dug into it. So I've gone down the trading route, which also includes binary options for those who knows what those are. And it's interesting because what you do with the e-commerce and stuff, that circle tends to also pull in the Bitcoin, the Forex, the trading, the binary, like it all gets looped in together because everyone kind of has the same core mindset around creating wealth. And so that was always super interesting to me. And then I've also, the big one certainly that applies is e-commerce. So I did 2 versions of e-commerce. I did retail arbitrage, where I was basically taking products from major retailers, putting them on eBay and on Amazon and shipping directly, get the order, ship it directly to the customer from the supplier, from the major retailer. So I wasn't working with wholesalers and stuff like that. It was just retail, but utilizing, platform differences in pricing as well as reward programs to my advantage. So I had that going. And that was really, I would say, from a pure dollar perspective, that was my most successful business by far. And then I evolved from that because it was kind of the gray areas in Amazon's policy to ship from another major retailer to their customers, and I didn't want to get shut down. And I was like, this is where mindset comes in, because I was like, I made it. I don't want to lose it. And so I woke up every day in fear that I was going to lose the $500,000 business that I built. And that ultimately led me to going, I can't do this long term. I need to shift the model. And so I evolved into private labeling products. So I was importing from China. I had a burger press was my first product. And so I was importing from China, and I built a line of kitchen products, cooking products that I sold on Amazon using FBA, fulfillment by Amazon. So I did that. I actually shut down the drop shipping and the retail arbitrage and completely shifted into private labeling products. Hindsight's 2020. I'm really glad I'm not in that business right now. I would not want to be importing products right now. So, guy, if you're in that world, God bless you, because I know it's tough right now. And so I did that. And then it was that business ultimately fell apart. No fault of my own, but just extenuating circumstances. I take responsibility in the choice I made to shut down what was working perfectly fine, and to be quite honest, would still work today. And there are people still doing it today, right? And that shift that I made out of fear, that led into coaching, and like really recognizing that it is truly, this adage that you can't pay your mortgage with your mindset is complete bunk. I could see it so many times over. It's everything, because without the right perspective, without looking things the right way, you can have opportunity literally shoving you in the face and you won't see it. And as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to see that. You have to keep the focus there in order to succeed. So that landed into, actually, e-commerce, and then really, I ended up as a healthcare broker for a period of time. So that was serving small businesses locally in Orlando, and with healthcare for their employees. So it's in that, and then that evolved into finally landing permanently, or at least for the last couple of years now. So that's good, in training and coaching. And again, because recognizing at the core, it was all about relationships and that drive success, and coaching and training helps to bring that out. So that pretty much checks, like, I think almost every box on different, of course, throughout that there was affiliate, right? So when I was drop shipping, I was with a company, it was educational, but it had an affiliate program. I wouldn't call it multi-level, because it was 10 levels, but it was direct level. I don't think it went multi, and there was a cap on the number of levels, right? So it was more affiliate based, but so I had that component as well. So affiliate marketing is in there. So yeah, pretty much everything under the sun. Can't think of what I might have missed.
That's a good summary right there. I actually have a couple of questions off of that.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I ask questions kind of from my perspective. A lot of times in my videos, I say limiting mindset. So some of the things that you say regarding, I'm imagining the research that you had to do through Amazon for that drop shipping. There's a lot of us out there is like, well, I want to do that. Don't give me the details on how you did it, but I want to talk about your mindset of the research and knowing positively that you're going to be able to get into this and be successful. Can you talk to a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, when I started, right, it starts with the sales pitch of the person giving it to you, right? So it started with just, that seems to make sense and it's worked for other people. And so the mindset there is just, I don't see why it wouldn't work until I try it. And that alone is a shift for a lot of people, because it's easy to give all the reasons why it won't work before you tried it, right? And so that was the first part. And then beyond, once I got going, obviously I was following a course. I believe in education across the board. I believe in paying people for their knowledge, clearly, because that's my industry. But even before I was, identified as a trainer, I was still believing that, to cut the learning curve, anything you can do to cut the learning curve. So as I got going with it, then it became like, I think the main key to the whole thing was celebration, believe it or not. And what I mean by that is, if you're leaning in and you do the first thing and you get the first sale, you have two options. You can look at the first sale and say, well, I got one, I need like 100 more, right? Or you can be like, oh my God, I got a sale. Woo-hoo! It actually works. Can you imagine what's possible when I scale this? How do I scale this? I got to figure out how to scale this, right? Those are your options. You can take the OG Eeyore approach, right? Or you could be like Tigger, like you're out there. I'm a Disney fan. So it's like, it's just, you have all this woo energy, right? You've got to celebrate that. I've literally never done that before. That's interesting. You got to celebrate the win every step of the way. Every step of the way, you got to celebrate the win. That keeps the focus on what's working, because the key to coming in and especially within a business like that is looking at what worked, right? Do the analysis. Sometimes it means looking at data, but it's figuring out what works. Now, when you're in the process of figuring out what works, you got to honor that. Meaning, if you're looking at niches or like what's going to sell, I didn't know what was going to sell, right? When I started in e-commerce. So I kind of had to pull from different, like, just think, what do I think will probably sell, and then test it. And then something would go and it's like, oh, okay, pay attention to that. Let's go in that direction. I landed on selling Christmas ornament, like, storage containers. Oh my God, so lights out, especially after Christmas, even more so, right? I was rolling them from Kmart to eBay so fast, making a profit like nothing. It was just like that. Because you just learned over time, you got to get in the mind of the consumer and think not only what sells, but what has good markup. What are people willing to pay more for, right? In that scenario where there was an arbitrage involved. And so it just became a case of celebrate along the way. And then when you're in that exploration phase, just honor that and stay committed to the breakthrough. In other words, keep trying and testing until you land. And then when you land, you'll know. And along the way, celebrate every little thing. If you learned what didn't sell, well, that didn't sell. Okay, then don't list any more of it. So I figured something out, celebrate it, and focus on the next thing. Interestingly enough, this works. Have you ever played World of Warcraft?
No, I haven't.
So in case any of your listeners have played World of Warcraft, which is a good chance that they have, here's a perfect example. There's a quest that drops these stupid little pages for a quest. You have to get a series of them together in order to complete the quest. Okay, and they're random drops from killing the monsters, the mobs. So I figured out that there's value to these. Nobody else was doing that. I would put those suckers on and I marked them up like crazy. I would buy them from one auction house with my faction and then sell them on the neutral auction house where both factions are. So I got double the audience because I got the Alliance and the Horde looking at it, right? And I'm selling these stupid little drops for 1 gold a piece, and they drop like crazy. It's just about getting the right one that you need, right? So like I was rolling it. It was the same freaking thing. I just figured out that I could sell this. People are going to want it because they need it. So it's the same thing in e-commerce, right? You just thinking along those lines and building up from there. So I found from a mindset perspective, it's, celebrate and just stay committed to the process and understand it might take some time. It does take some time, but it's worth it on the other end.
Yeah. And one of the things I just noticed from you is you hit a different level. As soon as you said celebrate, you raised your voice, your energy level went up, and through the whole conversation, it went up. So imagine if somebody actually does celebrate those wins in their own business, even if they're alone, they're going to keep that energy level up, and that's going to snowball for them. And that's where success happens versus focusing on the negative.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You just got to keep even when times are tough, man, you got to, even if it's one thing today, right? The number one question, what can I celebrate today? And that's so powerful.
That's a key right there. What can I celebrate to do today? Because you're going to be looking for it versus looking for that negative, like I mentioned.
Exactly.
The other thing I want to say is I'm honored that this is the first time you did ticket.
Gosh, he's such a great pal. So
that is awesome. I'm going to make sure that stays in there no matter what.
You ready? I got one more for you. You ready? Right. Affirmations, right? Big thing in the mindset space. So I took a little affirmation and that I use to mainly to entertain people. I can't necessarily say I say it to myself all the time, but so it goes like this. Let's say, for instance, your mind is telling you to give up, right? Or it's fear, right? Whatever's going on with the negative self-talk. And I say this: you may think you're so powerful, well, I am a warrior and I never give up. So there's your affirmation in Mickey voice. Mickey affirmation. So there you go.
That's great. Oh, I appreciate it. It's hard to transition off of that, but let's see what we can do here.
All right.
You mentioned you're currently a coach, things like that.
Yeah.
One of the questions I had is because I believe a lot of us are like-minded, even in positive and negative. So what do you see as a trend maybe over the last year of when you're coaching, when you're helping people move forward?
What I see, and honestly speaking from my own experience, I see it because it's probably where I've had to grow the most in the last year, is focus. It is squirrel syndrome is just rampant. Everyone is trying to sell you a new look. That's the wrong language. Everyone is trying to help you grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is that by using the things that we have to use as an industry, anyone in sales has to use: scarcity, fear of missing out, right? The basic motivational triggers that will get people to buy needs to be used. However, it can be detrimental because people who aren't able to say to themselves, I know I'm going to miss out, and that's okay, because this isn't my biggest problem right now that I'm focused on fixing, or it is not how I'm choosing to grow my business right now, or I'm okay with not having that in my life right now. And I think that's a huge thing, is focus around what are what are you doing on a day-to-day basis, and what your core activities are to grow your business. What are the key metrics to actually move the needle on what matters? Entrepreneurs can be very in the clouds, vision focused, which is great. It's good. Those are very important brainstorm sessions, but you also have to zone into like, how am I going to make money today? And that's really been something I've been focusing on. I'm very soon doing a webinar on focusing on referrals as an example. Which anyway, doesn't matter. Point is the emphasis on focus. Right? It's like, pick what's in alignment with you and focus on it, and cut out the noise. Unsubscribe from the emails. Get rid of the notifications. Unfollow on Facebook if you need to. Whatever it is, that like dates me. Apparently, like, young people don't go on Facebook anymore. So, but it's like,
Right.
whatever your platform is, right? Like, don't get sucked into that. And I think it's focused both from a income producing activity perspective, and then it's also the focus around structure in life in general. Then not only are we have a lot of people who want to help us grow our business, right? But then there's also the constant emails and texts and notifications and things that are coming at us all day long. And it's like, we've got to put boundaries. I literally, like, if you're the person who has CNN popping up on your phone with the latest news story, or even your local news, right? CNN, Fox News, I'm not picking this out. I'm saying, if there's news popping up on your phone, if every Facebook notification and every Messenger notification is popping up on your phone, I implore you, turn it off just for a day, and notice how different your energy and your focus is when you don't have other people's priorities pulling at you constantly. And it's a tough journey. It's not easy for us to do. There was this time, I don't know if you remember, but it was like, hey, Marco, no, he's not home. I'll have to have him call it back when he gets home. It'll be sometime before 7 o'clock. Okay, great. I'll have him call you. And then, believe it or not, you had to wait 4 hours for him to call you back. I know it's shocking to people, but there used to be this thing where you couldn't be reached all the time. And then you had to dial up. Remember when you had to dial up and you had to be online? And then you had to be on Messenger, and they had these away messages. So you actually knew when people were available, which, by the way, Facebook, if you're listening, please bring back away messages. But it's like that kind of thing, that boundary around first love yourself, meaning put the boundaries around everyone pulling on you. And that's personal and professional. Those are two really big things that I think COVID has accelerated and made a lot more noise, and we've got to cut the noise if we're going to succeed as entrepreneurs. And the people who cut the noise are the ones who do. And I see that over and over and over again.
Great answer. You actually mentioned referrals, and I want to discuss that a little bit. I don't know if it's the same track that you're talking about, but in what I'm learning, since I've been doing YouTube over the last maybe 6 months or so, networking is important. On the platform I'm using is Instagram, a little bit of Facebook, but primarily Instagram and YouTube. And I think referrals is a way to help continue to build my community.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? I want you to talk a little bit about referrals as well as networking. Kind of give me some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I thought about this especially because you're in the online space, and it's super cool because I'm starting to figure out more about exactly how this all applies to online networking just as much as it does offline. The first thing is you mentioned community, right? That's the core component. Number one is to understand that your network is your community, and you've got to approach it. It's not just a contact; it's a member of your community, and that's the number one thing is making sure to think about that, and then think, well, how do I want to treat people in my community? And so, along with that, when you're networking, and I think it's very important. I'm thinking back to my e-commerce days. I went to the Amazing Selling Machine conferences. I went to the DS Domination conferences. I went, and was networking with the other entrepreneurs who were in the same programs, and I love doing that stuff. So I think when you're networking, and especially in terms of like referrals, you kind of think of it as every time you're meeting somebody, you're figuring out, are they a good fit for your community? So are they going to resonate with who you are and the core of who your audience is, which is an extension of you? And do you have the same values, number one, and how you go about things? And then number two, right, does what they do also align? And then there's partnership opportunities. And so I think, now that I've been down this road a bit, what I see is the ability to, whether it's doing Zooms online with other influencers or ideally in person at conferences is great, but meeting people and then just following up and just understand that you're building relationship in person. Especially I think in this industry with e-commerce and such, you're building relationships for the purpose of, for the most part, you're looking for partnerships. Cross-promotional type things. That comes when you build like, know, and trust with each other. Well, that happens by how you're presenting, how you're interacting with people, you're networking these opportunities. And so I think it's a little bit of, some of the simple things like sending a handwritten note after you meet somebody at a conference. Sometimes you have to be a little sleuthy to get their address, ideally, because a lot of people don't have their address on their business cards anymore. But if you can manage to get that, sending handwritten notes, the simplest thing, but it will take the relationship like to the next level. And, along with that, when you think about networking and you're building an online platform, you want to network up. You want to get to more influential with more, the people who have more of a following. And so that you're moving up, right? Well, the way to get to build relationship with those people is by doing those simple little things. That's what the most successful people pay attention to. That's definitely something that I've learned along the way. And so there's so much power in that ultimately, so that you can build those partnerships because it's funny, I see some of the people who were killing it with Amazing Selling Machine selling on Amazon are now partnered with Robert Kiyosaki. And I saw a Facebook ad with this person partnered with Robert Kiyosaki. So that's interesting, right? So, that's a pretty big partnership. So that's super interesting that way. So that's kind of, I don't know if that answers the question, but it's my thought on networking in the online space or even offline, where it's not about sales referrals, but it's more about partnerships. It just comes down to finding the right people, making sure they align based on your philosophies and values, and just, give first, give thanks and give back. And that's pretty much the core.
Yeah. I like that because you're intentionally networking versus just giving your business card to whoever and everyone that will, look.
Please, for crying out loud. Hear me, people. It's okay. Listen, I used to be that guy. I used to be the guy that I didn't know how to network, and that's what I did. Yes, please. I'm so glad you brought that up. I will emphasize 100%. Don't throw cards. You give the card when they ask for it or when there's an obvious reason to give it. I don't even have business cards because I want them to give me theirs. Right? I'll follow up. It puts the onus on me. But nonetheless, yeah. So yes, don't throw. Network with intentionality. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's yes, that's a big one. Because no one teaches it, right? This goes back to the thing in school. They don't have networking 101 in schools, right? It's
Right.
They don't teach you that. You're lucky if you get something in college, and I only got that at the technical school. I certainly didn't get it in the traditional, in the 4-year college, right? So I got it at tech school. So yeah, definitely.
Well, closing up, my last question to all my guests, as you know, my channel name is Abel's Treasures, and I want to ask you, what is your greatest treasure? And I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. One of my greatest treasures that I mention all the time is connections with people. I think it's huge to be able to make these connections. So thank you for coming onto my channel.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I know I think so.
Yeah.
So what is your greatest treasure?
Greatest treasure. Quality experiences with the people closest to me. Love anytime you can, it can be, 8 people at a theme park hanging out, riding coasters, having drinks. It can be Disney, or it can be a cruise, or it can just be a 4-hour conversation at a restaurant with a friend. But anytime you can do fun things with people, that's what I love the most, and that's a lot of what drives me to be successful, is to be able to do more of that with people that I genuinely want to hang out with, and who just really, really, really align. And it's super energizing. So that would be mine.
Thommy, thank you for coming on my channel. I really appreciate the time you've taken to talk to us. And I agree with connections with people outside of a professional setting, like going to a theme park, as that helps develop and nurture our relationships with the people around us. Now, it is my job to pick out 3 items to discuss from our conversation. Here are the 3 items that I pulled out. Number 1 is education. Cutting down that learning curve, as you mentioned, is very important for success. To do that, you may have to pay for a course. You may have to watch additional YouTube videos. That's going to take time in the short term, but in the long run, you're cutting down on that learning curve to become successful. So I agree with that. Now, number 2, stay committed to the process. The process is important, and document that process. You can adjust it as you move forward and as you learn, but staying committed to that process, knowing that you're going to be successful, continuing to move forward. I like number 2. And number 3 is very important. And if you rewound to the point where he talks about celebration, you could see Tommy's energy level increasing. And that's how important it is. Celebrating the small wins and not focus on the negative. If you celebrate the small wins, that's going to continue to give you motivation to continue to build and level up your business. So make sure you do celebrate, focus on the process, and continue to move forward. Again, Thommy, thank you for the time. Everyone else, I really appreciate you. Finally, the greatest treasure is connections with people. Take care of each other.